Back in Africa, we have peace finally being drawn up. Egypt just has to give Ethiopia and Somaliland and South Sudan better trade deals in the Suez Canal. South Sudan gets part of northern Sudan, so we see lots of immigration. Because if you don't know, South Sudan is a lot more traditional, while North Sudan is a lot more Muslim. So we have immigration into these countries, so they can get their customs and stuff. We have Ethiopia getting Eritrea and Somaliland completely annexing Somalia, with Ethiopia getting a little bit out of it as well. So now let's go over into South America, with Venezuela being the aggressor in this situation, because of course they are. With this, they decide to declare war onto Colombia. And now, I don't know much about South America, but I know a lot of the countries aren't the biggest fans of each other. But we're just going to be keeping things simple because South America's a mess. Like, if you play Hearts of Iron 4 in South America, what is wrong with you? And if you think Panama is split up into two continents, you're wrong. With the declaration of war, this means Brazil is going to be getting involved, as well as Guyana, because land. So here it's a pretty easy pubbling. We just have Venezuela just dying. So that was pretty freaking simple, wasn't it? So here we have Venezuela just not existing anymore. But there will be a bit of an occupied zone of Venezuela around here, because Venezuela's pretty crimey. Yeah, there's a lot of crime in Venezuela. It's a horrible thing. Technically, the Vatican City has the most crime from pickpockets, because it's a tourist trap-ish. I mean, it's not really a tourist trap, but it can be. So we have Brazil getting a little bit out of Venezuela, as well as Guyana getting the rest of it, and Colombia being very thick. We also now have a declaration of war between Honduras and El Salvador, with El Salvador being the defender in the situation. Now this is because civil uprisings are happening, and what triggers it is another football match. So this leads to Honduras declaring war on El Salvador. El Salvador starts using its better army to start pushing deep into Honduran territory. They're able to get a pretty nice bulge up here, but until Nicaragua starts helping out Honduras. This leads to Honduras start to use its air superiority to take out El Salvador's air force. So now they're kind of a bit even. But on land, El Salvador has the advantage, while on air, Honduras has the advantage. So there's no real progress until peace has to be drawn up. We have El Salvador getting a little bit out of Honduras, and we have Honduras getting any debt, still owed to them. We are going to be seeing Nicaragua being punished, though, due to them helping out Honduras and kind of making the conflict go on for longer. So, for compensation for Honduras' loss, we have them getting a little bit of a dip into Nicaragua. Oh, so now let's go over to Mexico. Mexico is trying to think of ways to get a better economy until a massive factory and corporations start pushing into Belize, and it eventually becomes a banana republic. With this, we have Mexico declaring war on Belize after tensions are rising. And it sparks when Belize shoots down a Mexican plane, believing it to be a military plane. So now we have I did that whole plane scenario so I can make Belize red, because that just looks better in my opinion. But why is El Salvador still blue? I'll fix it later. So we have Mexico easily pushing into Belize and starting to make the advancements. Belize is able to hold them off for quite a while, though. And now Southern America doesn't really know which side to pick at this point, because in their eyes they're both terrible, despite the fact that they're both great. And yes, I did just make that joke. Eventually, though, we do see Belize fall, and Mexico's option is just total annexation, because it's easier, and that actually looks good. This should be real life. So now let's travel over to a different continent. We are going to, you guessed it, Australia or Oceania. We have another emu war being broken out here. Due to them starting to do 1920s things. Um, with this, we have the emu expansion starting up. So Australia sends down people with guns to kill their own national bird, but the emus are able to hold their defensive positions. With this, they eventually end up fortifying, and they start to pack up, and eventually decide to all meet up. That looks a bit too much like a historical symbol, so let's just fix that up. There we go. And we have the emus starting to expand down into Australia. With this, Australia decided to sign peace with the emus until massive mutant spiders start taking over part of the country. With this, Australia is able to sign a peace deal with both. So the emus and the spiders give off pretty harsh terms. Um, the emu empire, as what it's now known, gets this much out of Australia, and Australia doesn't really care because it's kind of just nothing. And the spiders get this. We eventually have naval battles with the spiders and the emus until they eventually end up signing peace. Um, Over here we have Papua New Guinea having a bit of a civil war and eventually splitting up into Papua New Guinea and just New Guinea. This also leads to Bougainville being independent, and for some reason this is still colored in. Over in Pakistan, we have them deciding to just unite with Afghanistan because easy. Although they become states so they can, not be under horrible dictators that only look to expand their own agendas and caused a 23-year long pointless war. It wasn't 23 years, but like $3 trillion, and the people lost kind of just yeah. So, anyways, we eventually have the Stan Empire being eventually set up with all the Stan nations except for the United Federation of Pakistan and Afghanistan um joining in. So now Stan is pretty powerful, and they decide to prove that by going to war with China for some reason. So here, because it's a surprise attack, Stan is able to start getting a decent push in, and because this area is pretty horrible right now, because horrible things are going on here. Jesus Christ, China. Um, we have riots, which leads to China surrender, leading to China just being more worthless and worthless by the day. At this point, and they were about to be taken seriously in the real world until someone had to take something years ago. So now we have Stan being a pretty formidable foe, and and Mongolia decides to put up a defensive